Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Alright lads, welcome back to Dimed Out. I am Mal Foster, hello, and you are watching another episode of Keep or Delete. On this episode we're going to be looking at Michael Haneke's film from 2000, Code Unknown. But you know what, it may as well be called Film Unknown, because other than the fact it's got Juliette Binoche, which, you know, is always, and the fact it was directed by Michael Haneke, which, yeah. Well, let's just say me and Mike have had a few issues over the years. Other than those things, I do not know what this film is about, other than because it came out in the year 2000, it qualifies for the 20th anniversary series, so yeah, we're going to give it a go. We're going to see what happens. Alright, so Code Unknown, or as it's also very fittingly known, Incomplete Tales of Several Journeys, which, let's be honest, it's doing exactly what it says on the tin. And on that note, let's get into it. Let's talk about Code Unknown. Oddly enough, considering I have somewhat of a mixed relationship with the films of Michael Haneke that I've seen in the past, the direction of Code Unknown is actually one of the things that I liked most about the film. I just like his approach towards the film. It feels very natural, and maybe it has always been, and I'm just not really remembering Haneke's approach because it has been a long time since I've seen a film of his. One of, if not the main thing that I like most about his approach here is his pursuit of naturalism. There seems to be a lot of natural light and sound throughout the film, a lot of natural environments, and even those that don't appear natural, the interiors of certain scenes, actually are very sort of pared down or dressed to look natural and believable. So yeah, and I guess when you're dealing with subject matters that, at least from what I can tell, are dealing with human issues, human relationships, human dynamics, I think pursuing a more natural approach, a more believable, realistic, somewhat immersive approach is definitely the right way to go. And I feel that from that standpoint, he has pulled it off really quite well with Code Unknown. Even down to little details like the ironing scene where Anne is watching TV, ironing, and then she pauses when she hears the screams from next door. You can see the reflection of the TV in the glass. Now, it's not exactly aesthetically pleasing, but it feels realistic, it feels natural, it feels like something you would actually see if you were in the room with Anne. Little details like that actually add up throughout the film, and static shots like that add up throughout the film. There's a static shot for an entire sequence in the taxi where you don't actually get to see the passenger. Your focus is more on the emotional reactions and the sort of mental process of the taxi driver once he gets the bad news and starts driving erratically. It's not so much in the vein of naturalism, but it's that sort of concentrated pursuit of chasing after something, and I think he really accomplishes it again in a static shot. One thing that I really did like about Haneke's approach is the way the film is actually pieced together in terms of cinematic language. There is very little to no multi-editing sequences. It's not like we're cutting every 5-10 seconds. There's a lot of long, drawn-out takes, whether those are static shots focused on one frame for a few minutes at a time, or if it's tracking or panning shots, which kind of follow the characters. Really, these predominantly long takes, they're sort of moving the perspective instead of constantly changing it. And I like that because it feels like you are following the characters, even though from a narrative standpoint, which we'll get into in a moment, it was actually kind of hard to, but I like the intent and I like the approach that Haneke takes with this film. Alright, so let's do it. Let's get into the narrative of Code Unknown, or the lack of narrative, the somewhat incomplete patchwork quilt that is the narrative of Code Unknown. Listen, I love just as much as anybody, a sense of ambiguity, of open-endedness, the space for interpretation. I love non-conventional narrative structures. But this just didn't work for me. The idea of these sort of snapshots, these little moments, these scattered interpretations and glimpses into several characters' lives, it just didn't work for me for a number of reasons. The main of which is that I'm not entirely sure what exactly it is that Haneke is trying to say with this film. Is it a commentary on the hardships that immigrants face? Is it a pointed look at racism? If it is, then it's really not diving into that subject at all with any depth. It's just surface value. Is it a commentary on people's inability to communicate with each other just in general? As human beings, the idea that we kind of hide ourselves away, that we are locked away, our true sense of being, our true sense of identity is locked away. And is that the sort of emphasis for the title and the sort of repeated thing at the front and back end of the film about not knowing the code number to get into Anne's apartment? Or is it supposed to be about how we find it difficult to communicate with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ethnic groups, different upbringings, different class structures? Is that what's being said here? I honestly don't know. A part of me latches onto that as being a possibility for what Haneke is trying to say because of two scenes in particular, the wedding party anecdote and the subway harassment scene, which, by the way, I'm just going to say is one of the reasons why I've disliked Haneke in the past, because to me, it feels like that serves zero purpose. I just felt that it was uncomfortable and unsettling for the purpose of being uncomfortable and unsettling. I felt like it was introduced as a sort of jarring mechanism that either really serves no purpose other than to sort of snap your attention into place or to point an accusatory finger, which he's done before with the whole remote scene in Funny Games, which to this day, I still hate. Alright, so let's get into aesthetic. As I mentioned before, I do like Haneke's naturalistic approach to this film. I like the fact he's pursuing a sense of naturalism based on the subject, based on the fact that he's casting some kind of eye and making some sort of commentary on humans to some degree. I like that approach, and I think that's really sort of emphasized and pushed forward by the actual camera placement and movement. In that first sequence, I really like the free-flowing camera movement where it traces Jean and Anne as they're having their conversation, and I like the fact that he knows when to stop and just hold still and sort of really ratchet up the tension. And this is done in a couple of places, but I think it's done definitely the best and most effective in that opening scene. I also like his use of still shots and static shots, allowing things to, as we talked about with the taxi scene, to sort of be omitted and for things to come in and out of the frame. I really like the way he treats what we're viewing. When we get to see Juliette Binoche's character Anne acting and it's done through a video camera, I didn't particularly care for this. I also didn't particularly care, on a side tangent, for the sort of meta twist that Haneke throws in, where we're seeing a completely different scene and then it sort of breaks down and we see that it's a scene that's being viewed in the sort of post-production recording booth. I felt like that it was just a little bit cheap and it really didn't add anything. But also kind of backtracking to the scene in which we see Anne acting through the video camera, again, it just really felt like it didn't add much except a little bit of confusion. Is this, and again to sort of tie it back to the narrative, is this Haneke talking about the blurred lines between acting and reality, between the characters people play and the people that they actually are? I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this was, and just aesthetically it was a little bit jarring and out of place. I did, as I mentioned, like the interiors throughout. I do feel like they were very natural, very believable, very relatable in particular, and it's a weird one to pull out, but I did like the sort of dour, low-lit farm kitchen. I feel, again, it added a sense of realism. It kind of felt like you were being thrown into a world that could and probably does exist, like a very believable universe that you've entered through the interiors and the sort of believable aesthetics there. I like that a lot. I also like the fact that there was no music, with the exception of that prolonged drum sequence at the back end of the film. I like that because it feels, again, like it's more in the pursuit of naturalism. It feels like you are not watching a movie, but you are actually in the world, walking through these different time periods and sequences with the characters. In terms of performance, I really don't have a great deal to say about this, and it partly harkens back to the point I made about the narrative being stretched too thin, the fact we don't actually get to spend that much time with each of the characters or see them truly develop or show a great deal. There are moments, there are glimpses, there are certain scenes which stand out in terms of performance, but as a whole, there's nothing really universally that penetrates and it becomes truly memorable. Juliette Binoche is always is good, but again, I don't think she's given that much. The supermarket scene is probably the highlight, where she kind of gets to show a little bit of the interior conflict that's going on with her and George's situation. The sequences with Jean and George's father are pretty good in a very sort of downplayed, non-verbal way. He communicates a lot, particularly the very straightforward sequence where him and Jean are having dinner and nobody says a word. But these are just glimpses and glimmers and small instances. There's nothing really here, as I say, that sort of penetrates and sticks with you properly or makes you think, wow, that was a fully fleshed character. And I suppose, given, the nature of the title of the film, what was it again? Incomplete Tales of Several Journeys. I guess that was Haneke's deliberate approach, to kind of not give you fully rounded, fully dimensional characters, but to give you like an essence of these people. But it didn't really do much for me. I felt like the essence we got wasn't really anything substantial. I cannot say that I enjoyed Code Unknown. I feel like it's a film that if I were to go back and watch it again at some point, I probably would get a little bit more from it, but I honestly have no desire to go back and watch this film again. There are parts of it I like. As I said, I like the direction, I like the approach, I like the low-key aesthetics, I like some of the decisions made, but it's not enough for me to ever want to go back and watch it again, despite how much more I may get a better understanding of the film. It's not left me with the desire to actually want to get a better understanding of the film. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy this. And it's a shame because I was hoping that I would, because I have a sort of very mixed relationship with the work of Michael Haneke. I was hoping this may be the film that kind of opens my eyes to things I hadn't seen in his work before and seen in him as a director. But it didn't. And on that note, and for those reasons and the others that I've stated in the video, I'm going to delete this film. So the next film on the chopping block for the 20th anniversary edition of Keep or Delete is Roy Andersson's Songs from the Second Floor. Now, like Code Unknown, I don't know anything about this film other than a lot of people seem to like it. That's about it. I don't even think I've seen a Roy Andersson film, period. So that's kind of curious and exciting to find myself introduced to a new director and what they have to offer. So yeah. In the meantime, I want to know all of your thoughts and feelings on this film, Code Unknown. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you agree with my decision to delete it? Or are you furious because you feel like I should have kept it? I want to know all of your thoughts and feelings down in the comments. Other than that, I want to say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this and you want to stick around for more, make sure to subscribe, hit the little ding dong bell so you get the notifications and all those good gubbins. And other than that, again, thank you for watching and I'll see you guys pretty soon.